Hello, hello, everybody. I'm going to wait for a few minutes to allow people to hop on. But my name is Raven Woods, and I'm the CEO and founder of Autism Mama Rocks the IEP. I support parents and advocate for them and their children in basically rocking their child's IEP. And I help you become knowledgeable and confident in going in to rock your own IEP. So I help guide you and teach you and educate you in all the laws and everything you need to know so that you can go into your IEP meeting as the CEO and be able to take a breath and really rock it and be the CEO of that meeting, because you are the number one and most important person at that meeting. So with that said, we're going to let people hop on here. If you are new, please post below who you are, your name, and where you are from. Today, we are going to talk about the lies that schools will tell you. I'm going to wait for a few minutes just to let people hop on. But as you hop on, make sure that you post who you are and where you're from, just so we can get to know each other. And I just went live about 10 minutes ago over on my group, and we had an amazing live question and answer. So if you are not a member of the group, make sure to head over there and join at Autism Mama Rocks IEP group so that you can too partake in the special question and answer 1 hour special question and answer session that we do. So you get all your questions answered and responded to, and if they can't be answered and responded to, we will personal message each other or set up a free call. So that's what my group people get. So if you aren't a member, just head over there and see what amazing community they have become. So as we're hanging out here again, my name is Raven Woods, and I am the CEO and founder of Autism Mama Rocks IEP, and I teach, educate, and empower parents, caregivers to really go into that meeting as the CEO and rock it and really feel confident and knowledgeable in what you do. Hello, hello. And really feel secure in it as well, because how many times do we want to go and kind of save face and feel like we know what we're doing in these IEP meetings, yet we kind of feel on the back end that, what am I doing? How am I going to do this? I don't want to fail my child, and feeling so overwhelmed by everything that's out there. I talk to you guys all the time, many of you, and we've talked about the overwhelm where you can Google things all the time. You can go to different blogs that they have on IEPs and so forth. But what's so frustrating, even for myself, because I tell people, I rocked my child's IEP. I've helped many, many, many people rock their child's IEP. But you know what? I don't know everything. And so I still continuously always want to be learning. And I'll tell you something that really frustrates me is when I go to a blog or something like that, and then there's links within that blog to click to something else. And with my ADD, I, of course, click it. So then the initial thing that I was reading and was interested in, I now am somewhere else because I clicked that link. And then I'm frustrated at that point. I just give up. Have you ever felt that way? Have you, Brandy, felt that way? Amanda, have you felt that way? So again, if you are new, post your name below, tell me who you are, where you're from, and really chime in and become part of this group, okay, and this page. And if you haven't jumped over to the group just to check it out, you don't even have to say anything. You can just check it out and see if it's kind of your vibe. Then hop over there and see if that's your cup of tea. If it's not, totally fine. But if it is, you'll really love the warm and welcome that everybody over on the group gives you. Hello, Amanda. Hello, Brandy. So good to see you guys all the time. Yeah, it's frustrating, you know? So I have a lot to cover, so I'm going to go ahead. And you know what? If you want to share this, go ahead and press and share this to anybody that wants to learn. I feel like, you know, I'll tell you a quick story before I move forward. Is I was in line at Starbucks, you know, the drive-thru. And my daughter was in the car with me. I have a 23-year-old. Yes, I do. And she's a teacher in Prince William County in Virginia. We're in Northern Virginia. And She's amazing. Anyway, she was irritated because a car had, kind of come on the other end to get through the drive-through, and it was really my turn. But I went ahead and let that van go as a van. And I was like, it's not a big deal. It's not worth getting an attitude because the lady wants to cut me off, right? So I waved her ahead and just let her go and let it be. And let me tell you something. Just by not letting something like that get to me and get me frustrated and ruin my day, not only when I got to the counter did I get a $5 gift card, but I got my coffee paid for as well. So it just goes to show that if you share your love and you share things that are good and that can help other people, that it will come back to you tenfold. So there's my story. All right, so I have my paperwork like I always do. In reference to what I'm going to talk about, I always write notes, I always take notes, and I always gather information that I feel will be valuable to you that you can then implement. Even if you don't know the whole thing of how to go through the IEP, it's going to give you value that you are going to need and use, okay? So a lot of teams, okay, when you have an IEP, you have a team, and they pass false information and undermine parents' roles. That is one of the number one things that schools do. Hi, Rachel, how are you? I was telling everybody, share this so we get lots of people on here so that we can help children, because I mean, shoot, with autism, what is it? 1 in 55 kids born today are born with autism. It's crazy, crazy. I know when my daughter was born, it was 1 in 150. Now it's 1 in 55. So that's an insane number. So share this live so that it can be shared with others. So teams pass false information and undermine roles of parents. And bottom line, the parent is the number one person who should be at that IEP, who should be looked at as the expert. But unfortunately, schools do not do that. They actually don't like the fact that a lot of parents are now educating themselves and knowing the laws and their rights and their child's rights. So school systems are feeling like they are the experts and you are not. And now that those roles are actually being reversed and changed, they're not liking it too much. But you have to keep advocating for your child. So this is very, very, very wrong. And knowledge is power, guys. That's what I try to teach you. Knowledge is power. Power, power, power. And in the special needs community, we are in this together, okay? There isn't, you or me or them. We're in this together because when we can make a difference together, it's going to be a bigger impact than if we did it by ourselves. So federal and state laws of children with disabilities and their parents are really clear. So I want you to understand that, and I want you to take that with you through what we talk about today. So it teaches you different things that you are going to use so that you can get what's needed and appropriate for your child. And the laws are there for you to use. And the issue is knowing how, okay? Teachers violate usually due to administration, okay? So they usually go against what they may want for our children because administration tells them otherwise. And then we as parents become victims because of what's going on within the school system. All right, so I'm going to go through some things that we're told, and I find these really interesting. I gathered many of them from you. I gathered some from online, but I found it kind of amusing of how these things all kind of came together. So have you ever been told your child's doing just fine and is keeping up with their classwork and is completely ready and prepared each day, but they're not eligible for special education services because, and I think we had this question over on the group today, but your child's doing fine, so they don't need special education. I'm sorry. and they deny you because you requested special education for your child, and the school system's now saying, oh, sorry, but your child's too high functioning and they don't qualify because they're doing well with their schoolwork. Well, here's the problem with that. That's not true, okay? And the problem with that also is the laws state specifically that grades and classroom, and I wrote this down, so I'm reading my notes, grades and classroom performance cannot be the sole determining factor of whether your child is eligible for special education services. So let me repeat that. If you're ever told your child's doing great, they're doing great in school, they're doing their classwork, so they're not eligible for special education. We can't offer that because he's doing so good in school or she's doing so good in school. It doesn't work like that because it's not solely based off of how they're performing in the class, okay? So that is not the only factor. All right, so check that off your list. Now you know. All right, the next thing is, have you ever heard, before we find your child eligible for special education services, we need to try RTI first, okay? So what RTI is in the school system, I'm looking for y'all's questions. So in the school system, we have teachers that will accommodate your child based off what their issues are and things that they're going through. So what that means is it could be they give them more time on a test, or they give them a little bit more one-on-one attention, or they allow them to sit at the front of the classroom so that they can focus better. All right, so it's a process used by educators to help students who are struggling with something within the classroom and in school. And the intention is to help them succeed in the classroom. But RTI is simply just that, to accommodate and help a struggling child to adapt better or function better and do better in the classroom. But that should be automatic, right? It shouldn't take the place of special education. So let me explain this to you. So the Department of Education actually recently put out a memo on this, and this is what it said. The memo explained that states and LEAs, all right, have an obligation to ensure that evaluations of children suspected of having a disability are not delayed or denied because of implementation of the RTI. Okay, so what that's saying is if your child is in a classroom and you need them evaluated, or you need them to have an evaluation, that just because the teacher has to actually provide RTI, which is an accommodation for them, then, hi Lori, then what has to then happen is they still have to have that evaluation. The school can't say, well, we're not going to do the evaluation until we see how RTI works out. It doesn't work that way. They have to do RTI and to accommodate that child, but then they also have to do the requested evaluation to see if that child qualifies for special education. So that is a lie that the school systems will say. They will say, let's try RTI first. Let's see how that works first. No, let that work, but also have the evaluation done. Again, like I tell you guys, the IEE and evaluations kill two birds with one stone. Don't let your child go any longer without services in special education if they don't have to. And unfortunately, the school systems seem to want it to work that way. Don't allow it. So let's move on to the next one. So have you ever heard, we tested your child for eligibility for special education, but he or she does not meet the criteria for eligibility. Therefore, this matter is closed, done. You have no say, that's it. They don't meet the eligibility requirements, so you are done. Okay, wrong. So how that works is you have the right to a IEE, which is an independent evaluation, okay? Which is why I tell you guys, and I'm going to be offering this to you come next week. I keep talking about this. Yes, I have an education vault literally getting ready to launch to all of you. But in the meantime, let me explain how I tell you to do this, okay? Is when you get an evaluation, you get an IEE at the same time. Always at the same time. Then when you meet for that team meeting, you can discuss both versus you have the evaluation from the school, you have the team meeting and you just discuss that, but you don't have yours from an outside evaluator that is, in my opinion, as an educator, I have my master's degree and I have taught education. I'm not just an advocate. I know I haven't told you all this kind of stuff, but I don't think my education has anything to do with me advocating, so I don't really talk about my education. But as an educator, I want you to know that this is incorrect. You need to do this together. They'll say, oh, well, let us do the evaluation first, and then you can go and do an IEE. No, it doesn't have to work like that. You can do it at the same time, and then you get both of them done. You're able to come to the table at one time and then go through both evaluations, and they have to consider the outside evaluation. Lori says, heard it till I got an advocate. Yeah, right. So the next thing we're going to talk about is, so just so you know, the team must consider that evaluation. Okay. So Lori, I've been telling people, share this. If you want to share this, we're trying to get this out to as many people as possible if you want to do that. So the next thing we're going to talk about is, have you heard, we have a translator, but we're not able to get one for you for your IEP meeting. So anybody that doesn't speak English, or they sign, or whatever the case may be, and you need a translator, the school system will sometimes say, oh, I'm sorry, we don't have anybody, or we don't provide that. We only hold the IEPs in English. Well, this is the United States of America, and that's not how it works anymore, okay? So that is wrong. Don't believe that. By law, they're required to provide an interpreter, a translator, whatever it is. That can be, you know, someone who signs, that can be someone who, you know, speaks Spanish, Chinese, whatever. It doesn't matter. They have to provide a translator. Okay, so if they don't have somebody within the school system, they have to hire somebody on the outside to come in and translate that IEP meeting. They can't say to somebody, oh, we just hold IEP meetings in English. No. Okay, so the next lie that you're told is, we can only hold meetings on Monday at noon. So if you can't make it, that's okay. We'll tell you what happened. Has anybody been told that before? I think I talked to someone last week and they said something along the lines of, and excuse me if I'm wrong, I apologize. I've talked to so many of you guys. I don't remember everything word for word verbatim. I take notes, but I don't, you know, remember everything. And she said something along the lines that the school said, oh, they only have IEP meetings on Tuesday for 20 minutes. And I kind of chuckled, because I'm not laughing at you guys. I'm laughing at the situation of the things that the school system has the audacity to say that is ludicrous. It's completely ludicrous. It makes me crazy just thinking about the things that they tell parents. And then, you know, not knowing what to do as a parent, which I was there back in the day, I would be like, oh, okay. I would think it was weird, but I would just say, okay, you know, and then I'd go home and I'd talk to people, and I'm a talker, as you can see. So I had no problems digging for information. I had no problems doing whatever I had to do. Just like you guys are on here doing whatever you have to do, whether you learn from me or somebody else, do what you have to do as parents to find out what you need to find out so that you can rock your child's IEP, okay? So if I don't do it for you, go find somebody who does it for you, because that is important. Your child needs to come first, and the No Child Left Behind Act needs to stay in place for you as well. Does that make sense? So, you know, the school system seem to let it go under the rug sometimes. We as parents have to say, no, my child will not go under the rug. These things are not going to be swept aside. They are going to be dealt with. Everything that you say to me is not going to be just digested and said, oh, okay, no problem. It's not going to be like that. You do whatever you have to do. If you have to report them and do a state complaint every other freaking month, then that's what you do. Annoy the living daylights out of them till they're so sick and tired of seeing your face or hearing you that they're going to give you what you want. That whatever it is you have to do, you just have to think of it of, I'm going to do whatever I have to do. So if I have to annoy them, I'm going to annoy them. If I have to, you know, have to really have documentation and all my ducks in a row, then I'm going to do that. Whatever it is you have to do, you have to have the mindset, change your mindset and your belief system and start thinking like a pro, okay? Like you are a pro at this. You're going to become a pro at this, at rocking your child's IEP. Stop thinking that you don't have it in you to really rock this, that you're just nervous and that you've tried and it's just not working. Well, you know what? Some of the most popular people and influential people are people that failed and then finally rocked the hell out of it, right? So you do the same thing, because guess what? What they did probably isn't as important as your child. Your child is the most important person in your life. Well, you know what I'm saying. So you need to make sure that you're doing everything within your power to do that. So I get it. We get overwhelmed. Things get crazy. You want to like take all the paperwork and fling it across the room and say, you know what, right? I do that sometimes. Go ahead, take your aggression out, throw the paper, say the words you need to say, and then get back on the horse the next day, okay? Because if you don't, then things are just going to keep going the way they are, and you don't want that. The more time you let lapse, the more the school system thinks they got you. So you need to make sure you go home, you take a breath, you come back, and you say, this is not what's happening, okay? So be on top of things, be proactive, do what you got to do, and don't worry about what other people say. Never worry about what other people say. You've got to do you got to own you, and don't worry about opinions or thoughts of others that are negative. Keep negativity out of your life. All right. So the next thing, have you guys ever heard, we understand that your child's IEP says he or she is supposed to get help with his or her behaviors, but right now we don't have a behavior therapist available, but we're going to try to get one soon. This is a big one, isn't it? Post below if you've ever heard something like that. So if you've just now come on here, my name's Raven Woods. Hey, how are you? I am the CEO and founder of Autism Mama Rocks IEP, and I give parents the knowledge and empowerment and love to really go into their child's IEP and rock it. So we're talking about the lies that schools tell you. So if you've heard that before, we're trying to get this person. So it doesn't have to be a behavior therapist, y'all. It could be, we're trying to get a speech therapist. We're trying to get an occupational therapist. So that's wrong. They can't just say, we're trying, but it's in your child's IEP to have a behavior therapist and that there's problems going on, or you requested an evaluation or an FBA based off behavior and they're like, oh, well, we don't have that person. Well, they have to hire out, okay, is what they have to do. So it is certain that they cannot provide that within the school system, they must contract with a private provider. If the school system does not have what they need to have to provide your child what's needed and appropriate for them to have a successful and academic career and have academic success, then they have to contract out. That could be the same thing for a translator. They have to contract out. They have to provide your child what's needed and appropriate. And that goes for if they have, and this happened to me twice. I don't have, there's tons of speech therapists in my child's school, but you know what? They contract out for my child's speech therapist to an amazing company, by the way. And I picked them. And ABA is done by a BCBA or a BCABA outside the school system, and they contract with the school system, okay? And there's a couple people that are different. The OT is within the school system. She's amazing. My child has a speech therapist that is outside the school system, ABA therapists that are outside the school system. And here's something, just getting off track for just a second. Did you know teachers don't teach my child? She's actually taught by the BCBA, who creates her plan of action for learning and creates her academics and goals and all that type of thing. So one of the subjects we are going to be talking about very soon is least restrictive environment. So many people think that that is the best way to go, and sometimes it is, but sometimes it isn't. Okay, so when you think about least restrictive environment, I'm going to make a post soon, and I'm going to have everybody post. What is the first thing you think about when you think about least restrictive environment? Do you want it or do you not? Okay, and I'm going to tell you my thoughts and my experiences with it, not just with my child, but people I've advocated for, where I've had to change their thought process because they were advocating for their child in the wrong way. Okay, so my job as an advocate isn't to agree with you. My job as an advocate is to advise you and help you and guide you in the right direction to get what's needed and appropriate for your child. So technically I'm working for your child, but I'm advocating with you, the parent, for your child. So my thought process is what's in the best interest of your child. But my language is speaking to the school system. So my language is different and it's focused on what's needed and appropriate for your child. So I get you. We're going to connect. We're going to totally agree that we need to get what's best for your child. But when we go talk to the school, it's going to be what's needed and appropriate. So we're just going to take what's best and transfer it into what's needed and appropriate. Super easy. Okay? So with what I just said, if they ever tell you, oh, well, we can't provide that, we don't have that within the school system, well, you better go hire them. Go shopping and find the therapist that we need for my child so that you can meet my child's needs, and we need to be on top of that. And I'll tell you what I do is I don't just let the school system go shopping. I pick them. So if they don't have the right person in the school system to work with your child, okay, and they have to go to the outside, you pick that person. Start doing the shopping and do the work for them. Then you get to choose who's working with your child. And that's a win-win, right? So by law, they have to provide your child what's needed and appropriate. So if they don't offer it in the school system, they have to go find them. Why not you go find them? Look up different speech therapists, look up different OTs, etc., and find one that you love. And then you're able to then choose and say, you know what, and don't even go to them and say, oh, I chose this person. You got to play their game, guys. You're going to go to them with your list, okay, top to the bottom, from who you like the best to the worst. Give them 3 different people and say, you know, I wanted to I'm not a fake person, so this is, let me get my game face on. Okay, so you need to go to the school with your paper and you need to say, hey, Miss Smith, I just wanted to let you know, I know that we talked about we need to get a speech therapist on for my child. And, you know, I was talking to some people and, you know, I was doing some homework myself and I found these 3 people. I don't really know them, even though you really did call them and you talked to them all. You're going to say, I don't really know them or anything, but here's 3 that I came up with and maybe that will help you out. But I don't know. You guys know best. So I figured I'd give you these 3 and let you know that I found them and they're local. And, you know, I was told that they work with some other kids in this area. One of my friends was telling me. So if you want to call them, you can call them. So you make it where I don't know anything. These are 3 people you can use. I heard other kids in the county are going there, but you're making it look like that they get to make the decision, that they're making the decision, and you're literally doing their homework for them. And they actually appreciate that. They're just not going to tell you. All right, we have some questions here. Outsourced teacher got my attention. Yeah, and definitely if the school system can't provide what's needed and appropriate for your child, and your child needs a behavior therapist, your child needs a speech therapist, etc. And here's the thing too, is it's not just, let me explain this. It's not just if the school can provide it. It's if they're qualified and highly qualified enough to work with your child. So it's not just, oh, we don't have a behavior therapist on staff, so I'm sorry, we can't provide that. You have to hire out. But it also can be, say they have a behavior therapist on staff. Say that behavior therapist is not working for your child. It's just not a situation that's working. I have fired people from my team in the past 12 and a half years, more than I can say, more than I can count. If you don't like somebody on your child's team because they're not effective and they're not providing good feedback, they're not a participant in that team, they're not offering any good value to benefit your child, they need to go. That's not someone you want working with your child. And you as the parent actually have the right to say, I don't want you working with my kid anymore. I do it all the time. I mean, I did do it all the time. I don't really anymore, but recently I kicked the reading specialist off my child's team, and you can make that decision. You're the parent. You get to choose who is implementing your child's education. So Amanda says, outsourced teacher, you got my attention. Amy says, I need you. My child is being left behind because we are being forced into LRE. No, I mean, LRE is law, which is great. You know, if your child can learn in the least restrictive environment, then awesome. But a lot of our kids, and here's the problem actually with this, and I'm just going to be very transparent with you, is we're the problem. You're the problem when it comes to least restrictive environment. A lot of us, moms, dads, grandparents, don't want to admit that our children learn better in a restrictive atmosphere. Let me explain. So I'll just talk about my child because it's easier to talk about her than somebody else's child. Okay, so Skylar, in the beginning, she was in general ed and she had a one-on-one come with her, but she wasn't learning. Sure, she was in general education. Sure, she was, you know, with peers like her, not with special needs, but like her, girls and boys like her in the school system. But she was not learning math at the rate they were. She was not learning language arts at the rate they were. So she's in this classroom with a one-on-one aide, and what does she feel like? She feels like a failure and feels bad because, believe it or not, even though at the time she couldn't verbalize as much as, you know, we would have wanted her to in third grade, guess what happens with children with autism when they feel, because they sense everything. And even children, you know, I worked with a child with Down syndrome a couple weeks ago, and he was the same way. They feel almost more than we do. So Skylar acted out and had behavior issues because she was put in a classroom with kids that were doing better than her, learning faster than her, and surpassing her by far, and she wasn't at that level. So I, as the parent, had to make the executive decision to say, she's not learning effectively in a typical gen ed classroom. We need to figure something else out. So now she is taught by behavior therapist, a BCBA, a board certified behavior therapist, analyst, who creates her goals and everything like that I agree to, etc. And she mainstreams and goes to general ed. I'm not removing her from being with typical peers, but she goes to PE and music and, you know, all those types of things. She's just in a restrictive environment to learn reading, math, and science. Okay, core subjects. So all I'm saying is just be open. Be open if your child is not learning in a gen ed classroom with a one-on-one or whatever it is to have the least restrictive environment, which even in Florida, they're pushing that like you wouldn't believe. Least restrictive environment, least restrictive environment. Now these kids aren't learning the way they should be learning because they're forced into this least restrictive environment that isn't benefiting them. Some children it does, but some it doesn't. And like I said, kids are different. So it has to be, the education has to be surrounded by how the impact of their disability impacts their education. So you have to make a decision based off your child. It shouldn't be a statewide thing or a rule-based thing, and it's not. So least restrictive environment is something all states encourage and is law that the school systems have to do. But you as the parent can make the executive decision, especially if your child isn't learning in the most appropriate way for them and increasing in goals and doing well, then you get to change that, okay? So least restrictive is something that is offered, that has to be offered. But if it's not working for your child and they're not learning the way they should be, that's when changes have to be made. Okay, so Rachel, let me get back to you in just 1 second, okay? Hi, Amy. How are you? Amanda, Lori. Hello, everybody. Brandy. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about is, have you ever heard, we have written the IEP already, so all you need to do is sign it. Has anybody ever heard that? So that's wrong. And you have to understand, like I've been telling you, is you're the most important member of the IEP team. Believe it or not, you know your child better than anybody. They're the expert in their area, hopefully, if they're highly qualified in your child and in what they do. Not all teachers are. You got to remember, teachers can be licensed in education, but that doesn't mean they're highly qualified to teach a child with disabilities. And just because they're a special education teacher does not mean they're highly qualified to teach a child with disabilities, okay? Because nowadays there's so few special education teachers. They're taking general education teachers who want to become a special education teacher. They sometimes give them a little bit of training and then plop them in a classroom. And so it is your right as a parent, caregiver, mom, dad, etc., to request information on your child's teachers, therapists, service providers, and anybody that works with your child. You're welcome to find out who they are, where they came from, where they learned, where they got their degree, what their extensive training was to make them highly qualified in that area of expertise. So if they're an occupational therapist, okay, how much training have they had, the occupational therapist, with children with Down syndrome, with autism, with ADHD? That's the importance. So parents need to be mindful of not just the title. Occupational therapist, special educator, reading specialist, etc. Know more. Educate yourself. Knowledge is power. Find out who Miss Smith learned from. Where did she get her degree? What made her qualified to teach reading? What did she do to get the extensive training to be a reading therapist? Then here's the kicker. Find out how much extensive training she had with whatever disability your child has. That's where you're going to catch people up. Okay, so you got your licensed teachers. I'm sure they're a reading specialist. I'm sure they're an occupational therapist. Find out. I challenge you guys. Come back and post it. Find out whatever therapist or service providers that your child has. Occupational therapy, physical therapy, reading specialist, dance therapist, music therapy, all these different types of therapy. And hopefully you guys take advantage of music and dance therapy. I love it. I think it's amazing for kids. And it helps with focus. It helps with keeping kids calmer. And there's actually scientifically based research on both music and dance therapy. Dance therapy is, my daughter did music therapy for a period of time, but it wasn't as effective for her. But music therapy is really good for kids who need a focus, to need to focus on something and to learn to not kind of be everywhere. That music is something that soothes the soul and soothes children who have a lot of focus issues or have issues getting their words out. So it's a way for them to get their words out through music. Dance therapy is something my daughter is in because that's really good for sensory issues. Believe it or not, their area, how they work the area. If you think about children with autism, a lot of them are kind of all over sometimes, even children with ADHD. Music therapy helps teach them movement. So it's not dance like you go to dance class. It's actually dance therapy where the therapist is qualified in dance, but also teaching children with special needs how to move gracefully within their environment. It's awesome. So let's move on. I got you, Rachel. Give me a second. So never, ever, ever let the school systems tell you these things. If you need me to repeat them, let me know, and I can go over some things a little bit more. We're getting ready to hit that hour, so I'm going to stay on here for another, I don't know, 5-10 minutes. If you have any questions, post them below. I have to get to Rachel's question, but I have a little bit more to get through. So this is just really important to understand is when the school system says, we've written your IEP already, all you got to do is sign it. Okay, that's awesome. I'm glad you've written the IEP. However, I am a part of the team, and so you need to make sure that it's your right to not only participate in the writing process and as a team member. That's number one, okay? But number two, it's your right to see all the evaluations before this meeting to figure out how the IEP is going to be written. Typically 10 days before the meeting, you should be able to be provided with the evaluations so that you can review them, wrap your head around them, ask any questions. And you need to make sure that you have everything together so that you can go to the meeting and ask your questions and whatever you need to do so that you can find out what you need to find out to make an educated decision yourself. You don't just take their word for it. You also need to understand that it's your right as a team member to, how do I say this? To basically say to the team, I appreciate all the work you've done. So if they say, hey, the IEP is done, we've done it, you know, go, all you got to do is sign. Well, I'm part of the team too, and I need to be part of this decision too. And make sure they gave you the evaluations days ahead of time, you know, at least 10 days that you've reviewed them, you've asked questions off of questions, etc. However, if it's just done like this and they're like, oh, we did it already, here, all you got to do is sign it. So what you say is, I appreciate you doing all the work for me. That's awesome. Thank you. However, I'm not going to sign this IEP until we as a team discuss any changes that need to be made to it. So I will take the IEP home and I will read it, and then I will get back to you with all my corrections and all the things that need changed. And I won't be signing the IEP until it has everything in there that's needed and appropriate for my child. Until then, the IEP will not be signed, period. Don't ever sign an IEP that you don't agree with, no matter what, okay? So this is very, very important, all right? So unless all the services are in there and all the wording that you need in there and everything that your child needs is in the IEP, I can't tell you how many times I have a relationship with the school system now where, it's good and bad, where if I want something, they quickly meet with me, but you guys got to understand that this was 12 years in the making. If you name a situation that has gone bad, I've been in it. If you name a situation where I could have kicked myself in the butt, I've done that too. You can name a situation where the biggest nightmare happened. You know, I was in an IEP meeting, I think I told some of you guys this story, where literally the special education teacher lied straight to my face, literally. And she said that my child was on this level. Seems like I have an issue with reading. So my daughter, she said my daughter was on this level of reading and that my daughter was doing amazing and that she was so proud of her, et cetera, et cetera. I brought my child into the meeting room. I had them go get her. And I asked Skylar to read that level of reading to me. So now I've taken out all the letters. All right. So if I don't understand something, I change it up. All right. So I said, we're not going to letter my child anymore. We're not going to say she's on level A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P when it comes to reading. All right. We're going to say grade level. So the school system agreed with me, and now we changed the wording. So at the time she was in, I want to say third grade. She was fourth grade, and she was reading on a kindergarten level. And this teacher, special education teacher, said that Skylar was reading on a third grade level, meaning she was only 1 year behind. I was like, oh my God, that's amazing. And I was so excited. And back then I did not understand how to test goals, how to read what a goal means, and how to make sure that they're measurable, how to make sure that they have dates and when that child's supposed to master them, and how to read a bell curve and tests and assessments and what the heck all that means, you know? And so I just kind of went with, you know, that, oh, she said that Skylar had mastered this. And so when I brought Skylar in to read this level of reading, and she did not, and of course I clapped and I said, Skylar did awesome, and she went back to class. Then I laid into that teacher, and if some of you guys remember this, I said to her, you just lied to me. I said, what year? She's like, well, maybe Skylar just memorized it. And I thought that she had mastered it. So she just got caught up in her lie. And so you guys have to be able to navigate how you talk and the questions that you ask. And I'm big on ask a question from a question. If they say something to you, ask a question back. If they ask you a question, don't respond, ask a question back. So you're finding out information with everything that you're doing so that you can hunt and gather all the information that you possibly need so that you can help your child. Okay, so let's get going so we can get off here and you guys can go to bed. I can go to bed. If you don't come to an agreement, just so that you understand how this works. So you're not signing the IEP till you agree. Just unfortunately, this happens and you have to make a state complaint. You can then do that. You can make a state complaint that the school system is not working with you to accommodate your child in providing an IEP that the team agrees with. You can actually complain about that. Okay? Because by law, as a team, you have to come to an agreement. And if they can't, they're going against the law. And so, especially if they're not working with you. Now, I highly suggest that you make a complaint and request mediation at the same time. I'm really big on those killing two birds with two stones, whatever how you say it. I'm getting tired, y'all. So what is it? Kill two birds with one stone. Yeah, I'm big on that because why not? You know, work smarter, not harder. Okay, just keep it easy for yourself. So what happens with this is when you make a complaint or you're going to mediation, okay? So make the complaint, but then you go to mediation. Or say you're going to due process. You're just jumping to it, all right? You're done dealing with them and you're going to due process. There's something called, which I'm going to be offering you in my top 5 laws, what's called stay put, okay? So what that means is if you go to mediation, all right, with the school system and school division, or you go to due process, stay put then goes into play. And so what that means is whatever accommodations, services, and IEP that your child has right then and there stays put. It doesn't change. Okay, so for example, you need to sign a new IEP, but they're not accommodating what needs to go into it or what your child needs, etc. You guys can't agree. So you decided to go to mediation. If you decide to go to mediation, what is in place right then and there when you choose to go to mediation stays put. All right? So you don't lose anything at that point because you guys didn't agree on the IEP anyway. So everything stays put. You then go to mediation. One thing to remember about mediation is anything brought up in mediation cannot be brought up in due process. You cannot use what's brought up in mediation against the school system. Okay? The point of mediation is to have a mediator. This person is not specialized in special education, just so y'all know. The mediator is literally a third party who comes in and is trained to handle people in disagreement. They have no idea, most of them, about special education, okay? They are just trained in dealing with problem solving, okay? So know that ahead of time. So you deal with this mediator, you hopefully come to an agreement through mediation. However, don't sign anything at that meeting, just like you're not going to sign anything at an IEP meeting. You take it home, you think about it, you go through it, you go to sleep, and you come back to it the next day with a clear head, and you ask questions, and you sign it when you're good and ready. So understand that mediation is an important process, that everybody should go through it if you can't agree, but that doesn't mean you don't make a state complaint. Do both, okay? And just remember that any proof that you have and that you bring to the table for mediation can then not be used in due process. Don't be afraid of due process. Even though you don't want to go there, that doesn't mean you need to be afraid of it. And anytime you have to go ever to due process, and if you do, don't be afraid of it, but know also that if you are right, the school system has to repay you for every last dime you spent in regards to due process and any other fees on top of that. If you lost time from work, whatever have you. All right, so here is, I have two more to go through, guys. Three. All right, so here's what I'm gonna say. Here's the draft IEP. We took out occupational therapy. This is what the school's telling you. Here's the IEP. We took out occupational therapy because your child's doing so well and he doesn't need it anymore. So the school system just took out occupational therapy for my child without talking to me, which they can't do. And you just decided on your own that that's how it was going to go without a meeting, without a team decision. It doesn't work like that. All right. So you have to ask yourself and ask them, what proof do you have and in what forms of testing that my child does not need occupational therapy? What observations? Okay. The next thing you need to make sure is that you do an independent evaluation to confirm that OT is no longer needed, because they can't just take something out of the IEP. All right, here's the next one. We know your child has been in general education classroom, but he or she is still is learning. Okay, let me repeat that. We know your child has been in a general education classroom, but will learn more if he or she is in a self-contained classroom. Okay, yeah. So basically what that's saying is the school's trying to take your child out of a gen ed classroom because they're going to learn better, kind of like I was talking about earlier, and put them in a self-contained. So all I'm saying to you is least restrictive environment is real. It is law. If that's the best thing for your child, fight for it. If it's not, be open-minded. That's all I'm going to say there. I'm actually not 100% in agreement with against this one, just because I have an open mind when it comes to least restrictive environment or restrictive environment, because really, honestly, I don't care what kind of environment it is, as long as my child is learning and they're safe and they're happy, because your child's always going to get that socialization. There's still music. There's still all these things out there. So the next one is, I can't approve that service you just asked for. I need to check with my supervisor. So if you're ever told that in an IEP meeting, please know that that's not okay. That anybody at an IEP meeting, administrator that is there, and somebody at all times has to be at your IEP meeting that can make decisions. If they're not, then it's not an accurate team. Okay, so by law, somebody at that meeting has to be able to make the executive decision. Okay, so just know that. All right, so we are done for tonight. Thank you for listening. I know some people have hopped off, and that's okay. They can catch up later. I know it was a lot, but hopefully you guys got valuable content. Give me a thumbs up if you really liked it, and any advice that you may have that you'd like to hear, or anything, any comments that you have in reference to what I've said. I'd love to hear your input. You guys are a big part of what I do and everything in what I do, honestly. So your input is super important. So please post below your thoughts, opinions, and how you liked it, and if it was valuable to you. Okay, so thank you so much for the thumbs up. I appreciate it. You guys are awesome. Really, truly, you are. You're an amazing group. And tell people about this group and page, the group and the page. If you know, I mean, all of us parents with children with special need know other people with children with special needs. So share the love. So Rachel says, what if they provide speech, but what if I would prefer my middle continue with his current speech path? School told me if that is the case, I will be responsible for transportation, and it will not be part of his school. So, Rachel, can you explain that a little more? I just want to make sure I understand it in full. So if the school system provides speech, but you would prefer to continue on is it a different path? Explain that to me, Rachel, so that I understand better. And then I can answer that. So my son is so ditto, Amy says. I've said that. I was flat out told SEC class and they have nothing. He has one-on-one and still not learning. That's should not be okay. You definitely, Amy, have to address that. You are so welcome. I hope I helped you. And if anybody ever has questions or wants to talk to me, either PM me, go to my website at Autism Mama Rocks IEP, and I will get you my schedule so that you can schedule your free 15-minute discovery call with me, and we can really find what the avenue is that's going to be best for you. Lori says they had me sign my son's IEP at the gas station. What? And I still have all the text messages on my phone. Well, you shouldn't have signed it at the gas station, Lori. But lesson learned, right? I've never heard of music therapy, Amanda says. Yes, it's amazing. Brandy says, is there really a law that says a parent doesn't need to consent to IEP? Yes. You do not have to sign any IEP by law. You do not. If you don't agree to it, you don't have to sign it, okay? And in my top 5 laws, you should see that. So I think you have that. But you do not have to sign an IEP that you do not agree to. You are not mandated by the state or by the federal government, because, IDEA is federal, to sign an IEP. Okay, so there's not a law as in a number, like, Brandy, you have the 5 laws. So there's, 1412, 1414, 1415. No, there's not a law or a section within the law that has like a write-up on you signing the IEP. No. So, but it is law, okay, that you, the parent, have the choice to not sign, okay? And you also, as the parent, has the choice to say, yes, you can implement that, or no, you cannot. Okay, does that make sense? Message me if it doesn't. So no, there's no numbered law, because all of us who know law and read it as experts, like we all do, right? Laws are numbered. Okay, 300.320 is a law within special education. 312.300. Okay, those are different laws within, special education law. Okay, and then of the top 5 laws, you have your top 5. Okay, no, there is not one of those that says parent must sign IEP or parent does not have to sign IEP. No, it doesn't have that in there. But it does have it in there where it states that the parents do not have to sign the IEP. There's not a law based off that, but it is law that you do not have to sign it. And it is law that the school system cannot implement anything that you don't agree with. Okay? So give me thumbs up if you all understand that. I want to make sure that you Can you guys hear me now? Hopefully you can hear me. I think I pushed mute. I'm sorry. Have I been just talking and you guys not hearing me? Um, Give me some thumbs up if you can hear me, so I know you can hear me. Because it was beeping, so that means it was on. Okay, good. That means it was on mute, so I apologize. I pushed my little button. All right, so I'm going to go really big recap, Brandy, because I pushed mute. No, they can't implement the IEP without your signature. No, they can't even begin a evaluation without your consent. And they have to stay, the old IEP has to stay in play, or if there is no IEP, then there's nothing in play if you don't sign the IEP, period. They cannot enforce an IEP without your permission. They cannot implement any type of service without your permission. They cannot start an evaluation without your permission. They can't do an IE without your permission. You usually take your child to the IE anyway, so just so you know. Least restrictive environment. Amy, I have to agree with you. Sometimes it's not ideal, but sometimes it is. So yes, we need to talk more about that. Sorry that you lost sound. I apologize. And what else? Okay, so Lori said, when choosing my son's new private day school, the special education director told me my input was appreciated, but she was the one who makes the last decision. And that's when you say, no, ma'am, that's not exactly how it works. I'm really sorry you feel that way. And then you need to set her straight. And if it becomes where you're in this power struggle, then you need to say, I'm going to table this meeting based off the fact that you think that you're the expert and that is not what's needed and appropriate for my child. So I feel that you are not appropriate possibly to be working with my child or on this team. The problem is we're talking about the special education director. So then maybe you need to go to the superintendent and have a conversation. You can put in writing that you want to have a sit down with the superintendent and assistant superintendent of special education, along with the education director, special education director, and state that she actually is not the person who makes the final decisions as far as what's going on with your child, because you're a team. Okay, and she is the one that approves that things can go forward, but you're the one that approves if things are implemented. And your child with a disability has rights, as do you, and they have to abide by that. So basically, you need to know your laws and your rights and the right wording, and then you go into them and lay into them, literally. Lay into them, literally. Because if you don't, they're going to keep doing these things to you. I mean, this is insane, the things that they're telling you. I mean, it's so wrong. I would report them to the state. We're in Virginia. I'll tell you who to write, who to send it to, who's in charge, everything. I know them all over there. I told her that if that was true, how come there was a meeting? I'm sure that means everyone has to agree. You're absolutely right. You all do have to agree. You all take part in it for a reason. And without you saying yes, that cannot happen. That it won't be implemented. She does not make the final decision, okay? She cannot use her power as the education director to abuse what is needed and appropriate for your child. And if you use some of these strong words that some people are intimidated by to use because they feel that they're strong, you actually get somewhere. I'm telling you. And, you know, I talked to a lady a couple weeks ago who her personality is nothing like mine. I have a very strong personality. I have no problems saying what I think, feel, and what should be appropriate for my child. But this lady that I was working with, she was just one of those people where like everybody has to get along and everybody's friends, and she can't imagine saying something like that to the team. You know, she just was like, I just don't talk like that. She's the cutest lady ever, but that's not her personality. You know, and that's one thing I've learned to really appreciate about all of you is we're all different, and that's okay. However, we have one mission: to get our children what's needed and appropriate no matter what. So if that's the goal and personality is getting into play, it's kind of like if you have a goal to accomplish, you have to tweak what you're doing and how you're doing it so that it can become something that you've accomplished. So if you have to not change your personality, but change the way you say and how you say things, and it's not exactly how you normally talk in everyday life. I tell people all the time, and I'm going to hop off here, guys. I know it's late. I tell people all the time, how I am in an IEP meeting is completely opposite of how I am in everyday life. Normally, I'm happy-go-lucky. I'm fun. I'm very outgoing. My kids are 23, 19, and 14. My oldest is a teacher. My middle child is in the military. And then my youngest is Skylar. I have fought for her since the day she was born. She got viral meningitis at 3 months, and we had issues ever since. And, I'm just passionate about what I do. So you have to just look at it like this. So normally I wouldn't just go and say something abrasive to somebody just to be rude. All right. Do I stand up for myself in just life in general? Absolutely. But sometimes saying nothing is better than saying something. However, in this situation, when it comes to our children, we have to talk. We have to say what we need to say for them. Okay. We are their voice. So just hypothetically, if any of you all have a personality that's more calm, cool, collected, just very non-confrontational, then you just take a look at what you're doing that's not working. That's all I ask you to do. And change for your child for that split second that you need to say what you got to say and mean it. Okay? So don't change you. Change how you're saying something to somebody that is affecting your little one. Okay? So we're going to call it a night, guys. I hope you enjoy. There's still no sound? It says there's sound. Can you hear me now? Can you guys hear me? Can you guys hear me now? Give me a thumbs up. So hopefully you guys can hear me. You can hear me. Okay, good. All right. So Rachel was telling me she couldn't hear me. All right. So you can hear me. Awesome. All right. So I'm going to call it a night, guys. Yeah, it's not. Okay, good. I'm glad. I hope you guys have a good night. I apologize that I went kind of mute for a few seconds. I appreciate you guys telling me that. And I will talk to you guys later. Post below any questions, concerns, or anything that you need. If you need me, make sure you message me and we can set up an appointment for a free call. I'll talk to you guys soon. Take care.